Ooh, we are live on the air. You know what this is. It's WeatherBrains, episode number, 684, the pre-show. This is for the 25th of February, 2019. A marvelous, magical time of this program where we share three things: boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we say occasionally outrageous things. And for those that have never watched this before, the actual show begins in about 12 minutes from here. So if you want to just go right to it and move the YouTube slider over about 12 minutes and we'll kick this thing off. But you often miss some exciting things that happen here. So let me see if I can be sure everybody's been invited, because typically somebody shows up here by the time I say all those things, like Mr. Bill Murray. Let me invite him one more time. Let's try that, and maybe that will work. So it's been quite a week. We've had some pretty rough flooding, mainly river flooding down here where I am in the Deep South. And then we had, after the flooding, we had tornadoes Saturday. Had an EF3 hit Columbus, Mississippi, which is about, 90 miles west of where I am here. And so far in my state, we had 3 confirmed tornadoes, relatively small ones. We had 2 EF1s and 1 EF0, and no injuries in my state. But we spent a wild week of weather watching last week with flooding, flash flooding, river flooding, and severe weather. And it looks like we're going to get into some shallow, cold air here in about 5 or 6 days. That always poses some interesting possibilities. So the gang is showing up here. We have Bill and Kim joining us.
And we better have Aubrey. All right. Hello, Kim.
Let me turn this down.
Hey, what's with is it Minnesota?
Minnesota.
He's a gopher.
Gopher.
Do you have the Minnesota fight song in your soundboard, though? That would be the tip.
I need to. No, my wife had to go to Rochester for a week. She took her sister that had to have some test run at the Mayo Clinic. So
yeah.
Oh goodness.
Said, bring me back a hoodie. So she did. So I was there last. I guess 2 years ago, I did a IWT workshop for Dan Luna, who's the MIC at Minneapolis St. Paul. So I had a great time up there. But Karen, my wife, went earlier this month. Her lowest temperature was, I think, 17 below zero.
Oh, my Lord.
My lowest temperature, I think, was maybe 25. I went in September, so that's the best time to go. It was great. Had a marvelous time. Troy, he is here, deep in the heart of Texas. Tejas.
Howdy.
Yes. I used to live in Texas, but back when we were young, Troy. We were young men back then. Channel 4 News.
Now. I'm going to go to bed now. You made me tired.
Channel 4 News, Dallas, Fort Worth.
There you go.
My competition in Dallas was Troy Dungan on Channel 8.
Yep.
And Harold Taft on Channel 5, the world's greatest weatherman.
Amazing guy. We lost him, I guess, in the late 80s, but Harold was amazing when you go back and look at broadcast meteorology and especially North Texas weather. And Troy Dungan, actually, when you were doing that, after a while in Texas, when I was over at KView, James, ABC here in Austin, we began to call each other. He was Troy 1, I was Troy 2. And we'd simply refer to each other by that name when we would call, hey, Troy 1, this is Troy 2. So to me, Troy's in Texas.
Now, Troy has retired. He retired, I guess, about 10 years ago. And Pete is doing the weather. Pete Delkus. Pete Delkus.
Right.
And so he's on Channel 8 now. And I think Finfrock has retired from Channel 5.
Yeah.
As I understand it.
Yeah, he is, I believe.
David Finfrock was there when I was there back in the 80s, and he, I want to say, worked weekends, and he stayed there for a long, long time. But
Texas
anyway.
Aggie, another Texas Aggie.
Come say hello to everybody, James.
Bill, what are you doing here? Bill's over here.
The milk and cookie delivery?
Cake.
Bill's just kind of screws with things. Yeah.
This is my 11-year-old. Hey, James. He brought me king cake. So it's Troy and Kim.
What is this thing?
What are these things? I saw Nick post about him on Twitter. What are those king cakes, Bill?
You know what a king cake is, right, Aubrey?
No, I don't. What are they?
It's a Mardi Gras cake.
Yeah.
It's a Mardi Gras cake. Okay.
You know, you eat them, and if you get the plastic baby in your bite of the king cake, you have good luck for the year.
Oh, it's a plastic baby gives you luck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, either that or you choke to death,
yeah.
and you had bad luck for the
I might be the partier, but
short
I have
rest
to
of your
say,
life.
I might be the partier, but I've actually never been to Mardi Gras.
Oh my goodness!
Believe it or not, I know.
Have to get you down there.
I don't know. I'm kind of past my prime now.
Oh, come on.
Come on.
Aubrey, come on.
I don't know. I'm to the point where I don't like crowds. I don't do that kind of.
Well, you're starting to act like James and myself.
I know.
Here
James is throwing off on me. I get cranky when there's too many people around. I don't like traffic and crowds.
It's past all you old folks' bedtime. Kim, that wasn't a glass of wine, was it?
No. Yes.
Jealous.
You didn't tell us there'd be wine.
Yeah. No, I deserve this for.
Yeah, she's a mom. She deserves every.
I was going to say, you got out of bedtime duty, and
No,
you have to do WeatherBrains. That's kind of like a win-lose proposition.
I see Alex down there. Alex, run! This is Troy. Run!
Hey, what's going on, Troy?
Get out when you can.
I can hear you guys.
This has got zoo written all over it tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, you know it.
Yeah, so Alex has to do a 9:00 newscast. So Aubrey, our plan works out nicely.
Perfect.
To talk to he and Tim at the beginning. Then Alex can come back at 9:30, but Tim has to leave.
Right, works out well that way, doesn't
It
it?
really is going to be a zoo tonight.
So it's going to look like planes stacked up over LaGuardia tonight. You know,
Pretty much. There's a lot of pictures on the bottom of that screen.
there are. I think this is a full house. We can't fit one more person, James.
Yes, about to say Dr. John, he's not going to be able to join us. Good thing, because we have no more space here.
We got some big time folks on the show tonight. This is great.
All right, we have to, for those joining us, we have to wait until the bottom of the hour here to start. We have to join the TV side here, so it's 26:30. So we've got tons of time. We never get everybody on this early.
What's the deal? This is
I don't know.
Thanks to Scott Martin for getting everybody's tests set up and
Yeah,
talking to
everything worked
everybody.
out.
So let's get a mic check from everybody. Hey, Alex, can you say something?
Yeah, hello, 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me?
Perfect, loud and clear. Rick, say something.
Hello, how are you? Got me?
Perfect. Tim, say something.
Greetings from the border wall.
Wow, we're good.
That's where this is going.
I'm about to say, all right, we're gonna blow the buzzer early here.
There you go.
Political free zone here.
Time for
I've got a long buzzer.
We should have a drinking game. Every time you play the buzzer, we can have another sip of
a
wine.
glass. Ooh. That would go
Or another
south
bite of
quickly.
king cake. Now, if I do the international symbol for choking, y'all go ahead and call for help in case I get the baby.
We'll hurry over. Yeah.
All right.
Wow, we've never had this long
This
period before the
never
show.
Right?
this never happens. I mean, we I don't know what happened here. We're too efficient.
Really? Wow.
I actually
With this many
opened up this
people?
thing. I opened up the show late tonight, the pre-show, by about 5 minutes, and I was thinking, man, we're going to be late getting this thing started. But I think good to go. So T minus 145. And for everybody on all the folks on the show, just so you'll know, most people listen, and there are a few listeners that are like audio freaks, and they don't like the bad audio stuff. So if you need to make some noises or something, there's a mute button up there, so you can mute yourself.
If you need to say, eat some king cake really loudly.
Or you choke on the king cake. At least have the courtesy to cut your mic off.
Yes.
So what we're going to do, James, is Aubrey's going to introduce Rick and talk to him for a minute, and then we'll talk to Alex and Tim about the conference, and then we'll come back to the main part of the interview with Rick.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Kevin, you're silent. What you're cranky? What's going on here?
Oh,
He's always.
That's because we can't hear. We can't hear a word he's saying.
That's exactly why. That's why.
Should have done a mic check with Kevin.
I'm blown away by this pre-show here. I mean, this is a first in the history of the show where I'm the least ranty or talky in the pre-show.
Yeah.
You haven't had wine or a king cake yet.
I feel like I probably should just leave. I think.
You've inspired a whole new generation of ranty people. Kevin.
Wow. I'm kind of afraid.
All right.
By the way, while we're waiting, Kim, that note you sent in response to that podcast has blown my mind. In a sentence, tell me if I'm right or wrong. You're wanting to surveil people using weather products. Is that a correct statement? Let me rephrase. You see the need or the necessity to do that. Not necessarily, I shouldn't have said you want to. Is that correct?
I mean, surveil is an interesting word. I've been saying observe, but
I used it because of the podcast.
Right. No, because of what you sent and the way they phrased it, I think that there's a almost eerie. You can make an eerie connection.
My head has exploded. I'm fascinated by it. This is the direction we're going when I come up there next week now.
All right. Sounds good.
I'm very excion't So what, is it me making that noise all of a sudden?
I'm afraid it's me. This is a sound on the video.
You won't believe what just happened. Hang on. It's going to take me a second.
We were having perfect
that's me.
Video and audio.
As soon as I spoke, it all went to hell.
Show title?
Yeah.
Is it kind of a wind noise, James?
it is.
Yeah, hang on.
It is.
I think it's me, guys. I'm going to drop out and see what happens. I'll come back.
No.
James thinks it's him.
It is me. It is me. It is me. I know. In fact, hang on.
Like rain falling.
He's being surveilled.
Is it Mark Zuckerberg suddenly listening in?
That's right.
That's it. That's what it sounds like.
That's the sound of being surveilled. Slithery and snake-like.
There it is.
Oh.
There it is.
You won't believe what just happened here. Hang on.
Whoa.
Hang on.
Now I'm interested in what James did in Birmingham.
Oh, he's gotten caught surveilling us. That's
it.
That's what it is.
Wow.
So it should be clean. It should be clean now.
yes.
It is better.
Okay.
So I use a virtual routing piece of software called Loopback from a company called Rogue Amoeba. And this is how I route the audio around and play the audio down the channel here. And they had an upgrade. And so I just clicked on upgrade. Okay, fine. Well, as it turned out,
did you never learn not to do that?
Yeah.
I did it like days ago, like 3 or 4 days ago. And just as the show started right at 8:30, it came on and said, we're inserting noise on your router, on your audio now because this is not a free upgrade.
That's funny.
I'm not going to tell you what I just had to pay to get the noise off my channel, but
now you got to tell us.
Did you put it on the weather company?
The weather factory platinum card here.
Wow.
No, I clicked on Apple Pay, double clicked on my watch, and it was $49.
Wow.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
They make great products, though, Rogue Amoeba. They're good.
And look, I love to pay for software. These people work hard, and I have no problem with that. But it would have been nice if they would have told me it's a paid upgrade. Anyway, let's get this thing started here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wow, that was beyond exciting. So here I'm glad it didn't happen during the show. I mean, that was like a miracle that it didn't. All right,
No, that would have been funny.
Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, this is WeatherBrains at the Wait a minute. Hang on.
Keep going. Keep going.
No, JP, just let it go, man. Hey, we'll let that go. So, WeatherBrains episode number 684 for the 25th of February, the weekly show all about weather. You know, some shows here just get off to a rocky start, and I don't even know what to say. But we're on the air everywhere right now. So, Kevin, help me, man. Help me.
I think the observation is that in almost 700 shows, 2 or 3 of them have not gotten off to a rocky start. That's the
that's exactly it. So, Kevin, welcome. Are you cranky? What's on your mind? Just say it.
I'm really just looking forward to sitting back, because if anybody who wants to go back and listen to the pre-show, and I came in early at the point at which Aubrey said something about being past her prime, and it just went downhill from there. So I think I'm just going to be sitting in the back and listening.
Yep, I'm in there with you. Troy, welcome back. You were absent last week with leave. You had a good excuse. What were you doing? Some examination type stuff?
Exams for lower division class, and this is the exam for the upper division class tomorrow. So I'm here. So 2 weeks.
You're going to ask questions of us later, Troy, to see if we can pass the test?
Y'all too smart for this.
So for the audio listeners, they should know that if you haven't taken this exam yet, Troy just held it up in front of the camera. So
quick screen grab, and you got 100 tomorrow.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you, Bill.
Kim Kloko is all
for sure.
Yeah, as always, we welcome Kim to the show. She brings some normalcy to this sea of insanity. Kim, welcome.
Man, that is a thing that I just treasure being said about me. Thank you. That's not usually what is said. I'm glad to be that person for everybody.
So Bill and Aubrey, I'm going to get right to our guest here, because before they run. So Bill, Aubrey, I don't know who needs to take it from here. So one of you two jump in. It's your show.
I'm going to defer my time to the lady from Virginia.
Thank you. And sir, my good sir, I'll let you eat your cake.
I haven't gotten the baby yet. I'm still working on it.
All right, so our first guest, we're going to go ahead and introduce Mr. Rick Reichmuth, who is the chief meteorologist at Fox News. And Rick comes to us, let's see, you're the chief meteorologist at Fox News. You're also the owner of the Weatherman umbrella. And before Fox, you also worked for CNN. So welcome to the show, Rick.
Thank you very much. I believe you didn't say you were past your prime. I think you said you were past your prime partying age.
Yeah.
Let's just get that very clear.
Keywords there. So, Rick, welcome to the show. And where you are you at the office tonight, or are you home tonight?
I am at the Umbrella office, which is in Brooklyn. Yeah.
Ah.
It is. I happen to have just shut the shades. It's not as ugly as it looks in my screen there, which, yeah.
So how much time do you spend at the Umbrella office?
If I'm not at my day job office, then I'm at this office. So, a fair amount of time. I work weekends at my day job, so Monday and Tuesday are my days off, and I'm at this place. I don't go into the afternoons at my other job, so I'm here in the mornings. Pretty much I just work all the time, which I should have thought about that before I started a business.
Well said. All right, I'm going to defer back to Bill so we can introduce some of our other guests, and we'll go back and forth here a little bit.
Yeah, I'm excited tonight because here in just a few weeks, the National Tropical Weather Conference is coming up at South Padre, and we've got Alex Garcia, who's the president and CEO, director of that program, chief meteorologist at Fox 29 in San Antonio. Alex, welcome to the show again.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's going to be exciting here.
Well, we're thrilled that you're here tonight. And Tim Smith is Vice President of Operations for the conference. and also chief meteorologist at KRGV in Westlake, Texas. Welcome back to the show, Tim. Good to see you.
It's good to be here. How come I'm the only one that when I mentioned where I live that I got buzzed in the pre-show? I don't know what happened there.
So there are just certain keywords on here that will sound that buzzer. It's artificial intelligence or something like that.
Yeah. That's what they say about James all the time, artificial intelligence.
Good one. Good one.
Right in here.
I walked right into that one, didn't I, boss?
Perfect.
That's pretty funny. All right, who wants to go first? Alex, tell us about the conference that's coming up.
Oh, well, we got a really great conference coming up. We've got something called the Hurricane Hunter Experience. This is something you don't get at any other conference. We're bringing in the hurricane hunters out of Biloxi, and they are going to bring a C-130. We're going to land it there at one of the airports close by, and we're going to take all the attendees out so they can tour the airplane, get some interviews. We're going to have some live uplinks so you can do live shots from there. Going to be pretty exciting that afternoon. That's on a Thursday. That morning, we've got Phil Klotz back in, and he's going to be giving us our seasonal forecast for the 2019 cast. So that Thursday itself is just going to be pretty exciting.
What's the process?
Load us all on I'm sorry, Kevin.
I'm sorry. No, just because you brought it up. What's the process of getting the hurricane hunters? You just call them and say, "Come on," and they do, or what?
Well, it's networking over several years.
Okay.
of getting to know them and getting to know the people there and suggesting the idea, and it all came together this year.
Okay. I'm sorry, Bill.
No, any truth to the rumor that we're all going to load on there and go out to international waters and turn this into a little party or something?
Hey, we had thought about that.
International waters aren't very far away, you know.
No,
I was going to say.
You don't have to go too far for that.
That doesn't trigger the buzzer. We're all right.
Okay.
There it is.
All right, have another drink of wine. You know, I got the buzzer for you there. So some really cool other speakers. You mentioned that you're going to have Mr. Klotzbach, of course. Who else is on the agenda?
Oh gosh, we've got Ken Graham coming in. He
will
come in and give the report of what's going on. We've got Craig Fugate coming in as well.
WeatherBrains alone.
Yes, we've got Leslie Henderson Chapman coming in to give a keynote. The big thing is we've got Rob Marciano from Good Morning America going to be there. On Thursday, they're going to do the Good Morning America live shot there from early in the morning. So they'll do the show there, and then he will keynote the luncheon that day. So there's a lot of folks coming in. Mark Sudduth coming in to talk about some of the video that he's gathered with these remote cams out there with storm surge material. It's incredible. We've got a couple of PhD students coming in from Oklahoma. This is new. They're going to come in and talk about weather drones and how they're using them to collect data during these storms. So lots of interesting things. We've got a lot of news directors coming in to talk about news coverage. Ed Petrovsky coming in to talk about Michael. And Ed, of course, is our winner this year of the John Coleman Award.
Wow, that's gonna be a blast. Talk about setting this thing up, Tim. This is a lot of work.
It's a year-long project, absolutely. You know, we get started about a week after it's over and start putting things together. And South Padre Island, where the conference is held, is home to me. I live pretty close to there, so it's rough, but somebody's got to do it. So we spend a lot of time on the island getting things ready, getting of course, Alex works on getting the speakers lined up. We say that Alex is in charge of content and I'm in charge of the social side.
There you go.
And so we try to have a good time. But, you know, we're learning a lot at the same time. So it really is pretty cool. And the special thing about the conference is that it's small enough that, you know, you may have dinner with Ken Graham, you may have dinner with Josh Morgerman, you might have dinner with Rob Marciano, whoever happens to be here, because it's a small enough group that you spend a lot of time with each person individually, and we try to keep it special like that and provide social opportunities for that as well.
So there's a reception on Wednesday night when folks arrive, and then the conference goes until Sunday at noon or Saturday at noon. Is that right?
Right. Saturday at noon, we wrap up, and usually we're done by Friday night, but with the Hurricane Hunter experience on Thursday afternoon, we moved that content to Saturday morning because we didn't want to take away from the content of the program.
So by my count, we'll have 4 National Hurricane Center directors, current and former there. Is that right, Tim?
Yes. With of course, Bill Reed will be there. Max Mayfield will be there. Neil Frank comes down from Houston, makes a trip down every year, and of course, the current Hurricane Center director Ken Graham will be there as well. And they'll usually do a panel. We have a panel with them where they talk about whatever the subject du jour is, and it's really interesting because they've got obviously some insight that none of us have, and they really provide that to the attendees. So it's really pretty cool.
And Jamie Rome will be there. He's kind of a rock star, especially with his storm surge work.
He is, and he's all about that. It's. I love that in this world that we live in, this weather world that we live in, there's a specialist for everything. And when it comes to storm surge, he's the guy. Comes over from the National Hurricane Center in Miami and really shares the latest science on understanding storm surge. And it's fascinating. It really is fascinating. So he'll be presenting one of the days as well, along with everybody else that we've talked about. It's really going to be a good conference this year, I think.
And so the award is now named after, or at least the one of the awards is named after John Coleman. Talk about that process, how that came to be.
Go ahead, Alex. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because we spent some time on it because John Coleman spoke here. He spoke at the conference a few years ago, and so Alex, you take it from there because I think it was a cool process.
Yes, it really was. John had come down. We invited him, and he came down and just gave an amazing presentation, practically saying, "That's it. I quit television right during the conference, and if you could call my boss."
Yeah, he did say that.
I remember that.
Didn't he drive from San Diego?
He drove all the way from San Diego. That's pretty wild. But we had been in contact with him for a while and kept in contact after the conference. And then when he retired and moved away up into Las Vegas, we still stayed in contact with him. And then when he became ill, we talked to his family and his wife, and we brought up the idea of getting an award and naming it after him. And they were all for it. We always get permission from the families. And so in that process, we helped design the award, design the picture. They picked it, and we created an award named after him in crystal. And it's basically for a meteorologist, a broadcast meteorologist, who really does the best job of informing the public before, during, after the hurricane. The follow-up being a really important one.
Wow, and the Dr. Bill Gray Award, obviously, we all know Dr. Gray, but talk about his significance to the conference.
Yes, Dr. Gray and I go way back, and Tim go way back to that infamous conference called the Bahamas Weather Conference.
Show of hands for who went to that. Show of hands who was there.
Yeah, were you on that boondoggle day?
That one. Where we go back to, and we had been friends ever since. And when they shut down that conference, and we decided to start up our own here 2 years later, we called him, and he said, "Yes, I'll come," without hesitation. And so with that, he also provided us. I remember 1 year he provided us with a little bit of support, monetary support that was a total surprise. And so he and Phil and I and Tim, really good friends. So when we weren't sure if Phil was going to make it, and we told him, don't come if you want to stay with him during those times. But Bill Gray called him in and told him, essentially, you get to that conference and you get things done there. And so after that, he passed away during that conference that we had. We decided it would be a good thing to go ahead and name an award after him. We call the family. Phil was the kind of the middle guy there. Again, we got them to look at the pictures and approve the pictures and the things that we use. And they said, go for it. So that's the same process we use.
These things don't come cheaply, putting on an event like this. Talk about the sponsors real quick.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they don't come cheaply, do they, Tim?
That's an understatement. But it's good. We've been fortunate, for a long time. Walmart was a supporter, and they still are.
Yes.
And then USAA saw what we were doing, and they really liked what we were doing.
Those guys are awesome.
They are terrific, and they answered the call. If you've ever been to the USAA facility in San Antonio, it's like going to the Pentagon, security-wise and size-wise. It's just huge. And you walk down these long hallways and turn left and right, and you end up in a little meeting room that nobody knows is there. And you ask for something, and they say yes. At least they did with us.
Yes.
I don't know that
they don't always say yes. I can tell you that, but they have a few times for sure.
but they've been on board, for the last, 3 years, Alex?
3 years, yeah.
And Walmart's been on board from the beginning. The city of South Padre Island is very helpful. They like having us there. They know that broadcasters doing live shots back to their home markets. So they get to see the sunny skies of South Padre, and they like that. So they've been really supportive over the years.
And,
yeah,
the
it's
event is at the Hilton Garden Inn, right, Alex?
Right, it's at the Hilton Garden Inn. We've been there for about the last 6 years. The first years we were over at the Isla Grande. We were just getting started. We only had 10 meteorologists that year, and it was a small group. Last year, I think, what were we pushing, Tim? We were a little over 100, weren't we?
Right. The first year there were more presenters than listeners.
Yes.
But now it's the other way around, fortunately, and it continues to grow. It's really doing well.
Well, tell folks how to register and what they need to do to get there, because it really is a great conference. I got to come with Brian Peters a few years ago, and I'm excited to be coming this year too. So tell us how to do that.
Well, the easiest way is just to go right to the website. Go to hurricanecenterlive.com. As soon as you get there, you'll see that homepage, and it's got all the information of what we're doing, the Hurricane Hunter Experience. Click on them for more information, then go to registration, and it's right there. Just fill out that registration form. Over to the right, there's a little PayPal form where you can pay your registration. Early registration closes next week.
And it's only $200.
Yeah, it's only $200. And for $200, you get a lot more than you would get at any of the other national conferences, because we find a way to get you the best rate for transportation from the airport. Once you're there with us, it's like you're our guest. We're going to feed you lunch. We're going to feed you breakfast. We're going to give you a couple of really cool experiences for dining out. We take you out to the different restaurants. And then on Friday night, we've got another farewell. And so we've got some really neat things that we do that you don't get at other conferences. We even give you a shirt if you forgot yours, like Rick Knapp did one year. His clothes didn't make it, so we had to give him the shirt. And good thing we had shirts for it. So
it was a little big, if I remember right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very cool. So we do so much more than just take your money and say, okay, here you go. You got to pay for everything else. We're not about that. We give you a lot for that $200.
And you left something important out, Alex.
I did.
You can get professional credit.
Yeah, that's right. You get professional credit for AMS and for NWA.
Yeah, that's exciting. Now, I think you have to go, Alex, Tim. Your schedules are.
I got a little while.
You're welcome to stay.
You got a little while, Tim. I'm
time.
going to have to drop off.
You're welcome to join back in later if you need to go and come back in. We'd love to have you here. So thank you for updating us on the conference, and we're really looking forward to it.
Thanks, Alex.
Well, I'll be dropping off and heading over, Tim. It's all in your hands.
All right. I will defer back to the lady from Virginia again.
Is the conference always at South Padre Island?
Yes, this is our 7th one. It's been South Padre from the beginning, and they've been terrific. They've been gracious hosts, and we really appreciate it.
Wonderful.
Their hospitality.
All right. Well, thanks for the information. All right, we're going to swing it back over to Mr. Weatherman there in the office. So Rick, tell us about your Weatherman umbrella. This kind of stemmed from, actually, I had been thinking about you because late at night when I get home and I'm cuddling up with a bear, usually with a glass of wine, and I'm tweeting out bear updates and bear photos, and I always get, Rick Reichmuth likes your bear photo, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Rick is a fan of bear, and my parents are big Rick fans, so I always tell my parents, oh, Rick likes the bear, So I got an email from, I guess it's your marketing firm, about your Weatherman umbrella. And so tell us about how this got started.
So I have 2 dogs, by the way. So I will, and your dog is very cute.
Yeah,
so I will always like all dog pictures. It's an obsession for sure. This was just years ago. I'm from Arizona originally. Never really used umbrellas ever at all. Moved to the East Coast about 20 years ago, and seemed to never have my umbrella, have a good one. They, most umbrellas are not very good. And I was about probably 8 years ago, I was standing in front of a rack of umbrellas at a store, looking at hundreds of them, thinking, what's the good one? Somebody just tell me what it is. I'll pay whatever it takes. I just, need a good one. And then I thought, well, I bet I could tell people what the good one is. And that was just kind of how it started. So it was just kind of an idea. I started, eventually a buddy of mine is an industrial designer. We started like collecting umbrellas and taking them apart in the apartment and trying to figure out what makes umbrellas good or bad, and set off on a long process of trying to make a good umbrella. And so kind of the idea is just to make an umbrella brand that only makes good umbrellas, and that's it. There's not gonna be a $10 bad version of ourselves. Just kind of be as good of quality as you can get with any kind of size of umbrella. The other problem I realized with umbrellas is you don't have them with you when you need them, so you go buy another crappy umbrella like last minute. So I thought if we can try to mitigate that a little bit, so we made an app, and just do a quick little program. You get alerts on days if you need your umbrella. So if you say, hey, I leave my house at 8 o'clock in the morning, at 7:45 you'll get an alert saying, hey, it's going to rain, take your umbrella today. And then there's a tracking device. So if you don't know where it is, you hit locate and it tells you where you last had your umbrella. So that's the kind of concept. Buy a good umbrella and have it with you when you need it.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's the idea. The umbrella part, which was difficult initially, is far easier than the data and the app. We have a full-time guy who a CTO, and all he does is work on this, and we have a lot of room to improve. And the good thing is we're able to do it. We're doing all those things to make it better and better. So that's the idea.
How long have you guys been, fully operational now?
Yeah, we launched in November of 2017. So we're about 15 months in business.
Okay.
Yeah, few years of working toward it. And then I always say it was just a puzzle. It was like trying to put together a puzzle, and every piece of it was really fun trying to figure that out. And I have zero business background, so trying to figure out how to make an umbrella, how to start a business, lawyers, investors, pitch decks, all of those pieces, a website, and then employees. But you get to the end, and once we launched, I had a business, and that was never what I thought was going to happen. Very naively, I was like, oh, this is a fun puzzle to put together to try to get it to market. Then you get it to market, and now you have payroll and payroll,
reality,
all those things that people who are sick and life emergencies and all those things that then it's real life. So now we're figuring that out. I've never worked so hard and anything in my life. So, but it's also I've never learned as much in my life as these last few years, which is good. I'm getting older, past my prime. And it's good to go back and challenge yourself and do something new again.
So Rick, this is really interesting because entrepreneurship, is something that is really important to me. Did you think about taking this on Shark Tank? I mean, it was kind of built for Shark Tank.
It was
on a competing network, I guess.
And you just said it right there. Yeah, and Fox has been incredibly supportive around it. And I kind of didn't know when I started it. Obviously, if any of you guys are familiar with Fox, a lot of the people there write books a lot.
I was just about to say that. So instead of writing a book, you made an umbrella.
So this is like Judge Janine's book, huh? Okay.
This is so my whole kind of concept, and they've been awesome, but I did not tell them what I was doing until it was done, because I just thought I want to have it be completed so there's no way out of it, And my whole plan was to say, like, I've written a book. It's an umbrella.
Not this long.
So anyway, they've been awesome.
Sorry, Rick, go ahead.
But they've been awesome with it. But there's also, I can't go on a competing network. NBC.
That made perfect sense.
Yeah.
Talk a minute about the sauce on the app. Take us as far as you can into the weather meteorology side of, how technologically you're getting these alerts to people. Are you using any national blend of models, or kind of what can you tell us about?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that it is not super sophisticated at this point. Initially, there's a lot of weather apps out there that you all know that have open APIs, just like a source that you can go and pull their information from. We are not at all at the point where we're aggregating our own data to put anything into our models yet. So we pull them from another source. and come up with the forecasting based off of that. That's the entryway into it, and then hopefully to be able to expand upon that and improve. That's the goal. So I think the whole idea is to be able to do one little piece to try to make forecasting better and to get better information out there to people, which everybody's that's what all of our goals are.
What's the response been? When I kind of posted on Instagram the Love My Weatherman hashtag and stuff like that, I instantly had 3 or 4 local people say, I have one, my family has one, they're awesome, this is an amazing umbrella.
Yeah, thank you. The response has been really amazing. It's a strange, I don't have kids. I feel like this is a kid, and I feel so the only thing I really care about is the umbrella being good. And it's a strange feeling. Like, if anybody has a problem with it, it hurts me like my child is ugly. It's a really strange, and hopefully that's really the main thing I care about. That was the goal from the beginning. And so the goal is to make a good product. Obviously, when you're making any products, that you have, some defective ones and you have problems, and then you have to have good customer service around it to try to make it right for a person. But the response has been really great. I early on, when I was at the point of trying to find funding, which if you're an entrepreneur and you've gone through that process at all, where you're out there trying to find some investor money, and I think I think there's a lot of you are in TV, and people assume if you work on TV, you have lots of money.
Right.
Exactly. And it's not true. So, to try to go and get some money around it. But anyway, a person who I knew had written a business plan, went to Columbia. I talked to him to get some help with that, and he is now my primary business partner. And thank God, and he's amazing and has all of the skills that I don't have around especially around the financing that I'm, in the process of learning, and have learned a lot. But where was I going with this story to you? I just lost my train of thought.
Sometimes the wrong train gets you to the right destination.
Yes, maybe. Hopefully you're right. We'll see here. About the umbrella being good. After all of this process, obviously you want to have a viable business, and that's why anybody, you go into a business because you want it to succeed. But the only way it'll succeed is if that umbrella is good. So it's the only thing that can put me into a tailspin if I ever find somebody who doesn't like it. It can put me in, it's a really hard thing to deal with. And it's funny, being on TV, and you guys know that you always think you're judged by maybe if somebody likes you or not, and there's nothing really much you can do about that, or if you get your forecast really wrong or right. But generally, people are kind of judging you based off of, if they like you on some level or not, they can trust you. It never crossed my mind that now they would judge me, TV person, based off of if is my product good. And that added this whole other layer of pressure to it that I kind of didn't think about. So, and keeps me, driving and focused to make it as good and better and improve and keep working it. So I rambled.
All right, I have a stupid question. You have an LPGA version on your website, but did you get any static for not calling it Weather Person?
Okay, hold on. I'm so glad that you said that, because that was what I was about to say before about the reception to the. So my partner is an amazing. He comes from a sports advertising world, and used to play in golf. Was like an amateur, and through that, we were able to just kind of get some good context around golf. And last year, Golf Digest called us Best Golf Umbrella. So in our first year in business, to get that kind of a thing, and that's just them reviewing it and liking it, was great. We have the official umbrella of the LPGA. We also, the Ryder Cup came to us, and we were the Ryder Cup umbrella last year. We're going to be the Ryder Cup umbrella in 2 years again as well. So those kinds of things are that quality, making that it's going to be good. That said, okay, back to your weatherman, weather person. It's a funny thing, because I don't disagree that it is there's something not perfect around the name because of that. And yet Weather Person doesn't really have kind of a catchy name for a product at all.
And at least you didn't call it Weather Boy, Rick. That was good.
Yeah, true. And I don't think any women wanted to be called Weather Woman or, anything like that either. So, yeah.
Well, this actually came up in our group, with the marketing email that came out, and I was kind of shocked a little bit when some people actually brought it up. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is, and I think some of the consensus around it was, this is your product. You're the weatherman.
Yeah.
You can name it whatever you want. This is your product. So, and there are several people that said, "Oh, I didn't take offense to it." I think there were some people that said, "Well, why doesn't he have a weather lady?" But
Sure.
you're kind of, I guess you're going to get that with almost anything.
It's exactly it. Also, when you're branding and creating a brand, you can't split it into two different names.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's legal issues, there's trademark issues, there's how you grow a brand, which you can't do that if you're splitting it up into multiple names. That's the practicality of it. But you're also right that, there with the name, there isn't at all anything that's intended to be sexist around it or, not understanding of the times we live in, but it is also, some people are always going to find something to be.
And we should clarify that Aubrey says, "Are you kidding me?" to most things that I say. So
True story.
True. I know. Yeah. But as we've always thought about this, especially as we don't have a real small umbrella yet, that most compact one. And we're going to be launching that in November. It's the hardest one to get good. And I think we've got it good finally. And we're going to be launching that, which will be a much easier product to target to women. And then that issue will probably come up even more a little bit for us to figure
I didn't realize how large it was until I pulled out my little rinky-dink flower umbrella and I went, oh.
Exactly.
Wow.
Flew out in the wind, right?
Yeah. But that's pretty cool. So Rick, tell us a little bit. Now you've got a really cool backstory, and tell me, did you never worked in local news? You've only done national.
I worked in local in Boston.
Okay.
So yeah, that was the only place I did for about a year and a half. I have a strange path to this. I got my degree in Spanish literature from Arizona State. And I did that while working at Bank of America. Just, happenstance, kind of like drifting aimless through school. Took me 8.5 years to get my bachelor's degree in Spanish literature. So
that's a record.
That gives you a little background. And East Coast. It's a big East Coast West Coast difference. If any of you are from the West Coast, you don't think of education in that same way that Easterners do. I have learned. I went to community college first, and all those things that an Easterner would never do. So anyway,
they do, believe me.
Yeah,
yeah. So anyway, when I worked in banking, I was a branch manager for a Bank of America branch in Arizona, and miserable every day of my life. And since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a weatherman. And so when I was 30, I just thought, well, I'm miserable doing this, so let me just see if I can go figure that out. Like, there's all these other people who are doing weather on TV, and maybe I can, figure it out. If they did it, I could probably figure it out. So I changed careers, and I just through a total stroke of luck met a person. I had moved to Atlanta, and I had met somebody who worked at CNN. They took my resume, brought it into CNN, and because I spoke Spanish, I got hired as a temp for CNN in Espanol. And I ended up being hired by these two people who were such great people. And they were like, "What are you doing, 30-year-old man, answering our phones?" And I was like, "I want to be a weatherman." And I quit my job, and this is what I've always wanted to do. And they just loved it. And they're like, "We will help you. We'll hook you up with the weather department. We'll critique your tape. We'll let you leave here to go to school to take classes, meteorology classes." And so I did that. I started taking classes at Georgia State. Eventually, I ended up doing Mississippi State. And after about a year and a half of practicing on evenings and weekends and just in front of the green screen and them critiquing it, I had a tape, and I was sending it out to every small town around that I could find on TV jobs that had an opening. And one day I got a call from an executive at Headline News, and they said, "Hey, Rick, we need somebody to do weather tomorrow in Headline News, and we hear you're available. Can you do it?" And I was like, yeah, like amazing. And then I showed up the next morning, like an hour, 2 hours before my shift, and I almost like crapped myself and walked out once I realized that happened.
Showtime.
Yeah, CNN, yeah, exactly. CNN at the time, they had just laid off like 4 of their people that they'd had for a long time, Flip Spiceland and these people, and now they didn't have enough people, so they were trying to find somebody to come in and fill in. Meanwhile, they had hired this woman named Rosie Etta, which I don't know if any of you would remember her, but she was like a 3-time Olympian, like 6'2", spectacular woman, really intimidating. And I walked into this office having never been on TV before, and there she was. And I literally almost just walked out. I was like, what have I do? And I went to do my very first hit and on Headline News, and I remember the anchor tossed to me, and I couldn't hear her because my heartbeat was beating so loud in my ear. Like the only thing I could hear was my heartbeat going, oops, I hit my, hold on. Now
you turned off your AirPods. I do it all the time.
Oh, there you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yep.
you're perfect. Yeah,
hold on. We're getting rid of these.
His IFB is out.
There you go. You got me?
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Oh man, I messed this up because I touched my AirPods.
Is that better? Can you hear us now?
Okay. You got me?
Yep.
Yeah, we got
I just messed up the whole thing because these AirPods, you touch them and they respond. And anyway, I could not hear the anchor because my heartbeat was beating so loud in my IFB. And that's the story. So then I worked for 3.5 years freelancing for CNN, and then eventually I moved to Boston, got a job with WSI. Fox used to outsource all their weather to this station, or to this WSI, the weather company, you all know it. And then I started freelancing at the Fox station in Boston. And then eventually Fox hired me to build a weather department inside Fox News Channel. So
That's awesome.
That's the path.
Cool. No small undertaking itself there, Rick.
I had to make up for my 8.5 years in college.
So what prevented you from getting into, so how come you never got into weather when you were younger? What prevented you from getting into it originally?
He lived in Arizona.
I lived in Arizona. I mean, I hate to say this, and I don't want to lay the blame on my parents, but
that's a loser profession. You don't want to do that.
It's not even that. I come from I think one thing that people don't realize, and maybe some of you guys do, I don't know everybody's background here, but there are, neither of my parents went to college. They're amazing, wonderful people. All that we have ever said was like, get a job and, so you can make a living and save some money. And that was it. And never did I grow up in a world that said, what do you want to be? And here's how you can be it. It just, that concept didn't exist.
That's so
in my world
to do that.
Yeah, and I am not. My parents are the most beautiful, lovely people around, and so I don't want to. That's not putting blame on them at all. But there's a lot of people who live in that kind of world that you don't know you can be something. You just know you need to get a job to make some money. So you can move out of the house,
In many cases, they just don't have the experience to know, how to tell you how to do it. They may point you in the right direction, but they can't mentor you, or lead you. And that becomes very, very important.
It does. And I lived in a town called Prescott, Arizona, if any of you know it. And
James knows it well.
It's a great town, but it was, when I was growing up, it had like 18,000 people there. It's a small town. And that concept, just in my world anyway, didn't exist, that you go study something so you can become the thing you want to become. So just inertia set in. I got a job as a teller when I was, at community college. I lived in Mexico for a year, so I spoke Spanish. So Spanish lit. Eventually, after like 6 years of college, it's like just pick something so you can get out. None of that was intentional. And then when I was 30, something just like, I thought I have to do something I want to do or I'm going to regret my entire life. And then I just started to do it. And then once you do one thing, you kind of learn and, figure out that you can do the next thing. And
your story is interestingly similar to a guy I heard speak Thursday or Friday in Memphis in the hotel business. He was a traffic engineer. His parents were, they came here with $7 in their pocket from India, 40 years ago, and they bought little motels until they had a little small empire. And he wanted to take over that empire. But, they said, no, go to college, get a degree. They put him on this path to do, traffic engineering. And so he hated it. He was like you, Rick, every day. He said, I'd get the magazines. I'd sit in my cubicle. My watch was my best friend. I could not wait till 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And he said, finally, I said, I'm breaking out. I'm going to do this. And he built a hotel. And now he has 35 hotels.
Wow.
And he's, got a book, and he's actually going out and speaking. And he said the interesting thing was that the traffic engineering society, saw what he had done and said, come back and speak to us. And he said, I am the last person you want to have come speak to you. So I bet Bank America is not sending any speaking invitations anytime.
No, they're not at all. My old manager, though, the district manager who I worked for, she left and started an art gallery.
You inspired a generation.
Yeah, we're still friends, and she was one of the best bosses I ever had, and we're still in touch.
Wow, that's awesome. So Rick, what kind of hours do you work? Because I know I've kind of seen you kind of all over the place, and so what kind of
so I for 13 years I've been Wednesday through Sunday at Fox, and it actually works really well for me. It's not a normal schedule, but I like it a lot. So I do the weekend Fox and Friends show, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday evenings. And then, weather for a good stretch, weather was important in news and in cable news, but obviously those days are gone. Mm-hmm. So it's important now, like on a Hurricane Michael will get 2 or 3 days, and then it goes right back to politics, and that's about as much.
So do you ever answer the phone in the weather office and it's the president and they've misconnected?
No, but I did have it happen the other day where I was actually not the other day. It was during Hurricane Michael, and I was on Shannon Bream's show like at 11 o'clock at night, and she was interviewing the president right after, and I did my segment, and she went right to him, and then he said, well, I was just listening to Rick talk about the da-da-da. Like, oh, my God. So
he was like, I thought he would never get off the air.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Do you get to go out in the field at all, or are you kind of pretty much sat in the office?
I do some. I used to go quite a bit back kind of when we cared so much more. 2011 was a really big year with the flooding that happened, all the tornadoes that happened. And I spent the better part of like 3 months just, right there wherever the story was, which was one of the greatest experiences of my life. But we just don't, I think one of the things that in communication, in news nowadays, we can see it kind of across the board. The threshold for tornado fatalities used to be maybe 5 or 6, and that would be a story that we would go and travel to whatever town had that happen. And then that threshold, keeps on going up. And after the super outbreak in that April of 2011, I thought that was it. And then Joplin happened, and now, it would take 20 fatalities in a tornado for it to register. It's the same thing that's happened with, gun violence and shootings. I do go to some fun things, like I cover the Daytona 500 every year, and I was there last week. And that Friday there was a shooting in Illinois, and there were 5 fatalities. And I had this, the year before was Parkland, and Parkland had happened, and I was down ready to do Daytona, and then obviously we didn't get it on at all during Daytona, and then here that 1 year later this Illinois thing happens, and there were 5 fatalities, and I knew, well, 5 fatalities will be like a headline. That won't be a story that we'll cover anymore. That'll be something that just gets put into the news headlines at the top of the hour that somebody reads. And I just took this into a really depressing place. But, traveling for stuff now, I just feel like our politics is all that anybody cares about. And the threshold for stuff is now so extremely high that it's so hard for so many important and good stories that touch people's lives to get any oxygen out there in the media. So
well, I don't know. I think some of us would like to see something other than politics. So
yeah,
we can bring the weather back.
Yeah. And the podcast. Yeah, I agree. There's, at some point the appetite for this stuff will, hopefully wane, and we can get back to talking about the stories that impact people's lives.
So I guess it'll be hard for us to get you to the National Weather Association Weatherfest in September in Huntsville, Alabama on that Saturday morning. Put a good word in for us. Rob Marciano coming to his deal. We'd love to have you.
I'd love to be there. I worked with Rob at CNN, and he was at the Umbrella launch party. We had a launch party, and Rob came to it. He's a great guy. Yeah, I would love to. The only thing that ends up happening in September is peak of hurricane season, that it's ultimately the one spot where I have to be close to home. But if there's nothing going on, I would happily be there.
Well, have it on the busiest day of hurricane season. That's how we do it at the NWA.
Yeah, right. Nicely done. I'm going to see if I can get down to the tropical weather conference. So
love to have you, Rick. That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. So
we're always worried about advice to students. We talk about you need to do programming, you need to do GIS. I always say you need some entrepreneurship in your resume or your routine. You're the poster child now for entrepreneurship and meteorology. And what other advice would you give to students today besides that?
Well, one of the things, and a lot of the advice I give is the complete opposite of my path. Like the fact that I had that my kind of dream of being a weatherman worked only happened because I had those 10 years working in a bank before. So, I never having a job at a place at any point, you should be learning, how do I get along with people? How do I not piss my boss off? How do I find a way to navigate a work environment so that I can provide something that is beneficial to them and I can get along with people? And that skill will carry you all the way across the board. And so even those skills that I learned in my 20s in banking transferred to when I tried to change careers to become a weatherman, even though I didn't know anything about TV or anything legit about meteorology. So you have to work your butt off. But I still think if I could rewrite my story, I would go back and work in market 180 to start, just because I think you gain skills in that I didn't gain in TV. So I would always, and I see this happen at Fox all the time. Fox hires a lot of interns. We have a great intern program. A lot of interns are really awesome. They get a job at Fox. They're living in New York. They stay there for 3 or 4 years. They get a few raises. They like the lifestyle. They want to be on TV. They're never going to get a job on Fox. I mean, 1 in 1,000 maybe. And now they're going to be too old and not want to go back and move to market 180. I think never be afraid to do the hard work for many years. And once you do that, you're going to get to be 40 or 50 one way or another, unless you die. You might as well get there having done all the hard work, put in all of those hours along the way. And once you do that, that will accumulate to something that is tangible, and you'll be able to do something with that. So that's my advice to young people.
That is awesome stuff, right? Yep. Aubrey, go ahead.
No, that's some good advice, and that's actually part of what I'm actually going to be talking about at the Severe Storm Symposium that I am talking at the end of March. You can always catch that March 22nd weekend. You can look that up at Mississippi State to all our listeners. But the good advice for some of those young kids. Kim, go ahead.
Yeah, Rick, you while you're giving advice here, I have a question related. You made mention of starting this new capability within Fox. But for anyone who wants to start something within an existing organization, start a new capability, is actually something I'm trying to do as well, working with others. What recommendations would you have for going out into the world and doing that? And that's not something I imagine there's any prep for. You're trying to create something new that never was. What did it take for you to do that successfully? And what would you recommend that other people think about?
Interesting. So I think one thing, obviously, you have to have buy-in. You have to have buy-in from people, but I think you also you have to be not annoying and be persistent. Like that fine balance between those two things. If you're annoying, nobody's ever going to want to have you around to tell you what you can do for them. But if you find a way to get along with them and be persistent, and you might see something doesn't move that needle in 3 months or in 6 months, but I bet you that if you wait for 2 years, that needle will have been moved, and are persistent in that way. In some ways, life happens so fast now and change happens so fast, but in other ways, it still doesn't. Like, it's just about being persistent, finding allies, finding ways to make people, see that they need something, make them understand that what they don't have is hurting them,
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to go through the whole process?
Well, so the what I did at Fox was Fox used to outsource their weather, and so they were really, the way they did that, it was not efficient for them at all. Like when Fox, so they used to outsource all their graphics production and 50% of their on-air stuff. So I was in North Andover, Massachusetts. It's like 30 miles north of Boston, and in an office park, and they had like a green screen in a closet, and they would just open up a link, and the anchor would say, "Let's go to Rick in the Fox Weather Center." And I was like in this closet in this office park in North Andover, but the viewer had absolutely no clue. Not a super efficient way to get information internally in a company to each other. The other thing that would happen is all of the graphics production was done in at our place at WSI, and then we would FTP those files down to New York. So if Janice Dean was going to have a weather hit and needed a radar loop, we would literally render a radar loop and FTP that down to her. She'd have to have her show not in play so that it wouldn't crash her system. Wow. Let it upload, put it in play, run down the hall to a different studio, and go get on air. And by that time, that radar loop was 5 minutes old that she was getting on air with. So it's an incredibly inefficient way, obviously, to do weather. Mm-hmm. And so eventually Fox just realized, like, CNN's kicking our butt all the time on this. And I was down there meeting with them saying, they're going to keep kicking your butt unless you, do this. And the truth is, they didn't really care until 2004 and 2005 hurricane seasons happened. And they're like, we can't keep letting this happen, So, so they saw the need, and that's what I brought. And then when I took that job, I didn't know how to create a weather department at all, but I had worked at WSI and I knew all the right people, and I knew how to get the right people to get the right systems in. And, I knew enough to know what I didn't know, and I knew who I knew to ask the questions, and when it was okay to ask a question that I was okay that they knew I didn't know, but didn't want somebody else to know I didn't know. Like all those little kind of games you have to, maneuver through that. And don't get in, too over your head by any means, but but they have to, be convinced that they need something. My umbrella is a completely separate side project. So that's convincing them that I'm still a dedicated employee and I'm, going to be here for you first. And don't worry that I'm, not going to be here the second you need me. So.
Yeah, it's sort of it's really striking as you talk about those experiences that I think especially young people starting out feel like they need to know everything about something before they go forward. And actually, it can be tough when you go in front of people that you want to work with maybe and try to present as though you do know everything. What you just talked about is not that at all, that you pulled from you knew where to pull from, and that you didn't feel like that burden that you had to be the single source, knowing all the things. I think that's really valuable for students coming up to know that it's not just about carrying it all on your shoulders, but being able to bring in a team with you. So always be looking around you at the people who are coming up around you, and recognize that every experience that you have matters. And I mean, that's really what you did all along the way. It's such a neat story.
Well, it's also strange that I think internally we all feel like we need to have all the answers. And yet if we look at others, we hate know-it-alls. What a strange thing. Like somebody who comes in who's a know-it-all, they're the most annoying person to be around. And you would like that person if they would just say, I don't know the answer to that. Like nobody's afraid for you to say, I don't know the answer. But people are afraid if you'll say like, I don't care and I'm not going to find out. Like that's a whole other story, Be honest, like what you don't know, or like, hey, I don't know, but I can figure this out, or I'll be able to do this. Might take me a minute. Like set the expectation. But I think there is no shame at all in not knowing. And in fact, by positioning it that you don't know something, you are guaranteed to learn so much more than you ever would have otherwise.
True.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right, so I got to ask my cranky questions here, Rick. on the national level, how do consultants come into play with you guys? Are you pushed to hype the weather at all, or do they get on your back about what you say and what you wear? How do they come into play on the national level?
I've never seen a consultant.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Horrible. Don't look directly at them.
Never seen one.
Show title.
We have an internal wardrobe department, and so they mostly dress the women. They spend a lot more time, but they, we have a little wardrobe allowance. So I have some amazing perks, like my suits are made for me from a person who comes to the office like twice a year, so they can, measure me and make them. And then I pick a fabric and it gets approved, and a month later a suit shows up and I don't have to do anything around that, which is really awesome. Cool. Except that I keep on gaining weight by having this business. So I keep on having to get bigger suits, which is, maybe there will be a consultant at some point who says something about that. Now that I think about it, but no, I've never seen that. The only thing, honestly, and I do struggle with this is, and you guys all know this, that headlines grab people's attention. Every show at least at Fox, and I know this to be the case at all the three big cable news places, every show works autonomously. So they have a producer, their anchor, their writers, and their job is to protect their show, and that's it. And so the writer who's going to write an intro to me, their job is to sell that story to make people keep on watching and not tune out. And my job is to never make the anchor look foolish who just read those words to me, but then to try to wiggle my way out of what they just said. And if I have a chance, I'll try to stop the writer ahead of time, like, no, this isn't the storm of the century, actually. And no, this isn't nearly as bad as that last thing. And sometimes I'll be like, if you choose to write that, I am going to say right away, no, that's wrong. Like, you can't do it. This happened, Hurricane Sandy happened, and I was on with Megyn Kelly like the week after. I don't know if you remember, Hurricane Sandy happened like a week later. There was a nor'easter came and it snowed. and there was like, a couple of inches of snow and like 50-mile-an-hour winds maybe on the Jersey coast. And so, Megan Kelly tosses to me, Megan, who's lovely, so this isn't her fault, but she's just reading, is like, the second monster storm in 2 weeks. And you're like, come on, don't do that to people. People are scared out of their mind after just having Sandy, and they're going to think that's happening, and it's not. And you guys, I'm sure, would all agree that all of not 80% of the grief we get for forecasts being wrong is what reporters and anchors were saying about it, not what we were forecasting about it. And that happens in the national level as well, maybe even more so. But there's no consultants. God, I talk too much. Sorry.
Wow. No, that's good. So how hard is it dealing with national weather? I mean, you've got microclimates and, some parts of the country like lake effect snow and the mountains out west. You got to deal with all this stuff. For local people like us, as stooges down here, we just deal with one area. You do it forever. You get used to it. How hard is it on the national level to deal with such a smorgasbord of weather across the country?
Overall, I think it's way easier than what you're doing. So for the most part, I get 1 minute, maybe 1:30 if I'm lucky. And I'm talking about big things. So I will almost never need to get into super microclimates in any DMA. And all too often I say things like storms across the southeast. Big sweeping, like there's way too much of that because I've got 1 minute and I have to hit all of the places. But I will say that I have been to 48 out of 50 states. I've been to like 40 states multiple times. And I think just that traveling around and seeing stuff gives such good context in your brain because you can see in your mind where there is, whatever, the Red River flows north in North Dakota and, Amarillo's at 4,000 feet elevation. So you do get some orographic lift in there. And that kind of thing is, you do that enough and it starts to give you a lot more context. Never, though, anything that I'm going to be able to say, like, to pull out, the west side of Nashville is going to have something different than the east side of Nashville. So
I got to ask, which two states? You've not...
Montana and Alaska.
Wow.
Yeah, good ones.
Now you made everybody in Montana feel terrible.
Montana and Alaska.
So the next question, and we got to take a break in a second. Out of all the people at Fox, the journalists, the people you work with, who is the kindest? Who's the one that you really just they stick above all the others because of you like to work with them?
Huh. I'll say this a little bit differently. There's almost nobody there who isn't kind.
Because my next question is, who's the biggest jerk?
Yeah. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that one. I'm not going to do that one. But I think like wow. Dana Perino is really nice. She's really nice and just really, really decent. She's great. Bill Hemmer, I've never seen him be anything other than happy, like consistent, decent guy. Shannon Bream is really lovely. Martha McCallum is really lovely. Overall, Neil. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Neil, what's his
Cavuto?
name? How did I do that? Neil Cavuto. Yeah. I was thinking Perino. Neil Cavuto is just as good of a guy as they get. So there's a lot of really nice people there.
And one more question. The most bizarre thing that's ever happened to you on the air?
Okay. I was covering the NFL draft. And
what?
Yeah, it was the NFL draft was happening and they sent me out there to, I don't know, just to talk about not the actual NFL draft, but like the crowd around it and the story. So there was a man and a woman, and the woman she was probably 60 some years old, and her head was shaved, and she had tattoos in her scalp here about something football, but not in like a scary way. Actually, somehow it was just kind of interesting. and she was with who I thought was her son. And he was probably like 40 years old. And they said, so I was talking to them right before doing the segment. I was going to interview them because they were very colorful. So and they said that they were there because their nephew was being drafted by the NFL. So of course I get on air and I was like, what's it like to be here with your mom?
Oh,
she's my wife.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. It was really awful.
So we got to pause very quickly for Tony Rice. We're going to come back with everybody's picks of the week, weather roundup, and a whole lot more as WeatherBrains rolls along. Y'all don't go away.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
Last week, a WeatherBrains listener shared an article that he'd seen in a British tabloid with a headline that shouted, NASA asteroid warning. Giant asteroid headed for Earth, approaching tomorrow at 29,000 miles per hour. Now, other sources of similar reputability are picking up articles like this, and they show up on Facebook feeds and other social media sources. One yelled, NASA warned people of massive asteroid headed to Earth this weekend. Now, both were referring to asteroid 2019 CB2, which, yes, did pass Earth in the early morning hours of Sunday, February 10th. But buried at the bottom of the article is the fact that the asteroid was expected to and did miss Earth by more than 650,000 miles. Not only is this bad science and bad journalism, it's not even particularly good clickbait. Why they picked CB2 to get in a lather about when just 24 hours later, 2019 CN5 passed 8 times closer? I don't know. But it speaks to the overall process, I guess. That same tabloid reported this weekend that a monstrous, all in caps of course, asteroid measuring just over 280 feet in diameter will near miss the Earth next week at more than 30,000 miles per hour. Magnitude adjectives aside, all these facts are pretty much correct. But one important figure was left out of the article. That rocky visitor will pass more than 14 times beyond the distance to the moon. So everybody just settle down. So where's all this coming from? As I skim through past articles, the similarity between them makes me think that there may not even be a human involved in creating them. When you look at them all at once, they start to look like Mad Libs, and they all go something like this. NASA asteroid warning. Space rock will hurtle, barrel, dash, or some other speedy verb past Earth today. The article generally includes the astounding speed of the rocky visitor as well. Spoiler alert, they're all going pretty fast, generally between 3 and 25 kilometers per second. Let's stop and think about that for a minute. That's why they're in the orbits that bring them close enough to be classified as near-Earth objects. So-called is also placed before any mention of the phrase near-Earth object for some reason. Why these so-called journalists feel the need to cast doubt on scientific classification is beyond me. The opening paragraph generally ends with NASA's asteroid trackers have revealed. While this may conjure up an image of an intrepid reporter prying information from a reluctant scientist about some dangerous asteroid, nothing could be further from the truth. All this information comes straight from data openly published by the Center for Near-Earth Object Studies at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. You can visit cneos.jpl.nasa.gov and click on Close Approaches to see them for yourself. You'll quickly discover that this isn't a big deal. Space rocks pass harmlessly by Earth nearly every day. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
What's in there? Hungry.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
So someone else is signed in to this email on this computer, and it's not letting me sign him out.
It's a Russian bot.
Show title.
I've signed him out like 4 times, and it's still not letting it. It's still not signing him out. And I've closed the browser and reopened it. So maybe we could try picks of the week first while I see if this will log in.
The smell is so compelling that people hack into it just to read it.
Yeah. All right. Well,
he's surveilling her.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick weather roundup. What's going on here? Down here in the deep south, we're underwater. Bill, we had many places had a foot of rain last week. We had severe weather Saturday. We had an EF3 tornado in Columbus, Mississippi. Had 3 tornadoes in our state, 2 EF1s, 1 EF0, and we are thankful for a calmer day. And I guess the big story in coming days, it's this frigid air that will not go away. Looks like the first week of meteorological spring will be just as cold as the dead of winter for much of the lower 48 here. So let's see, Troy, what's going on down there? Let's go with our Texas. So let's start with Tim. Tim, what's going on down there in South Texas?
I can show you right back there. There you see it. It's 80s every day.
Wow.
You don't want to see that?
Wow.
I can turn the camera away.
Oh, no, we see it fine. Wow.
We're just coming to visit.
Well,
you have room for all of us.
Yes, got a lot of bedrooms in the house. It's been great. Yesterday we had a freak little. I wasn't even a rain shower, but there was pea-sized hail in one of our counties. That there was no rain. It was a little tiny shower on the radar, but the dew points at the ground were about 25 or 30, and all the rain evaporated, but the hail made it to the ground. Little tiny stuff lasted a couple of minutes, but really unusual event. Hail / grapple, I'm not sure, but 80s every day. We're good with that.
So your neighbor over there to the west, Troy, I guess you're pretty warm too, huh?
Yeah, we're sitting at 56 tonight in Austin, so it's not too bad. Looks like a little rain the next couple of days, and then I think, James, the same system that is the models haven't been as good in Texas with all this, but some of that cold air does come south. All the models are pretty consistent in saying that kind of a backdoor type of system into Texas. So by, I'd say, Sunday and Monday, we're looking at highs mainly in the 40s, lows in the 30s, a chance of some rain maybe by when we get into next week. So it's going to be much cooler here by then.
So let's go up north to Kevin and Kim. Kevin, how cold will it be next week up there?
You know what? It's going to be cold, but I'm chasing a mystery right now that I want some answers from, and I would love for Troy to look at this. There's some sort of a radar bloom that started around, I don't know, it's been an hour ago, something like that. Not 6:35, 8:35 maybe, something like that. On radar. FD. Well, that's interesting because it's on FDR. It starts around Jacksboro. And so your first thought is, okay, it's biological, but you look at it and you go, maybe not. And then you think, well, is it chaff? And you go, I don't know about that. Yeah. And then I went over to FWD and it sees the one in Jacksboro, but then 20 minutes later, a second one starts further to the east, north of Denton. And they're moving northeast, but it's a really kind of a soft looking bloom. And I'm completely puzzled by it. So somebody can answer that for me.
I'm seeing the same thing.
You see, so I'm not crazy. Well, I am crazy, but you're seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
So anyway,
but James, you've seen some of this too. There's been a lot of stuff people have noticed, particularly up in the Ohio Valley in the last couple of months. There have been some strange radar signatures. Yeah, I think seen some other things too that they were wondering whether it was chaff or exactly what was going on. But
it doesn't look quite like either.
Have you gone to the higher elevations? The higher tilts?
No, I should do that. And let's see.
Because sometimes that'll tell a story.
Let's see. I'm still
now we're all playing with our radar right now.
Yeah.
Looks like
your show, by the way.
Quick, you go up.
Well, now that's it. On FWD, it should be FWS, but it's Fort Worth office. It is displaced further south. I can see the second one. Well, no, wait a minute.
And what's interesting with the plume is it's not even traveling exactly with the predominant direction of surface flow.
Right.
Yeah. It's going, yeah.
Yeah.
So right, I'm digging a hole.
That's what I said. Alien.
Surveilling us. They're doing this because they knew we'd do this on the program. They're taking
all right. Well, so it's like 8:35-ish on this date is Monday the 25th. So any listeners who want to dig back and figure out what this is, will I will get you an umbrella. How's that? Can we do that?
We can do it. We can do it. Yes.
All right, that's perfect.
All right. So Kim, how cold is going to be in Norman next week?
Just take the forecast Troy gave you and go down about 5 degrees. We're going to be in the same situation where, we're looking at maybe getting into the mid upper 20s, with it. And, we've enjoyed the beautiful day we had today. Take what we can get while we can get it. I'll tell you, it was a really fun weekend here. The wind event that became the high wind event that swept the southeast and then the east coast. Here it was extremely windy this weekend. We had just from ordinary wind, we had a great deal of tree limbs down and a lot of fences down in the area. I thought it was just really interesting. I don't remember having seen that degree of damage from just an ordinary wind day, at least not in quite some time. So, you know, they don't call it Oklahoma where the wind comes swooping down the plains for nothing.
The state of the windy.
It was something on Saturday. I think here, I've been here 4.5 years, and it was unquestionably the longest 35 to 45 sustained event through the day on Saturday that I think I've ever seen. And then going back to the cold air, the early Moss guides, I haven't looked this afternoon, but when I sat down to the forecast, Wednesday, the GFS had us in Wichita Falls had us at 74, and the NAM had 47.
Ooh.
Wow.
Good luck with that, pal.
Yeah.
We should mention that Mount Washington today had a peak wind gust of 171 miles per hour. 171, surpassing the previous February wind record, which was 166 set back in 1972. Their all-time record is like 213, 213. Bill, 231 in there. 231. Yeah.
I think they had a sustained today at like 147.
Wow.
That's insane. Just absolutely insane. But I see that, Aubrey, you've got your email box open here, so I'm not going to re-rack the music, but let's do some email while we got some time here. Go.
I do want to question Kevin about this. Can you guys see this? Do you know what this is? This is Instagram. This is Instagram. This is Kevin. This is Kevin on Instagram.
Yeah.
Do you want to know what I was shocked when I was scrolling through Instagram and in my people you might know popped up, and there is Kevin Selly. So Kevin, would you like to explain yourself? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but Facebook owns Instagram.
Yes, I know. Yes. This is a really fascinating conversation, especially in light of my pick of the week. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to give it now or mention it now, because I think it's going to have to be a longer conversation, because Kim and I talked about it briefly before the show. But there's a really just amazingly well done podcast with a woman who is a retired business professor at Harvard, and she has a book out, and the title of the book, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's about what she has termed surveillance capitalism. And it's the surveillance of all users being done by Google and Facebook and so on and so forth. And it's a really interesting podcast. So that's my pick of the week. It leads to a book that I'm about to start reading. I haven't started it yet, but I'm really at a really interesting point on this, because I equated it to somebody, you know, I don't know how much, you know, I can't start on this now, but it's kind of what I think James went through some years ago when it went with the Fox station there, when Fox came in and his transfer to ABC. There's really kind of a moral tug of war going on in my head with regard to this. And if you really want to get started on it, go get my pick of the week. It's this podcast from Recode Decode. It's her name is Shoshana Zuboff is the guest. It's not the most recent episode, but it's the one before. But it'll be my pick of the week on weatherbrains.com. And then go and watch the what's the show? Frontline. Bill's watched Frontline, so he can get there's a 2-episode Frontline on the birth and development of Facebook. Both of those give you a really good foundation, but I really think we're in an amazing position here where they are surveilling us, there's no question, but what is it doing to society? And what is our responsibility and our part in driving people to these platforms while they're doing that? It's getting worse, and it's going to continue to go, but I don't want to get on a rant now, because Aubrey's got to finish the email. And I'm actually going to check out, and thanks so much to the guests, because I got to go to my shows as well. But and Kim and I maybe we'll talk about this next week. I'm going up to do an interview with her, so all of those things coming. But anyway, thanks, guys. I'll see you later.
Bye, Kevin.
Bye, Kevin. All right. I've got like literally 30 seconds before I have to run into the studio. So Norm Kirkland, please comment on the program about the small dog warning issued by the Ohio NWS office on February 15th. Both my wife and I thought it was quite humorous, but is it professional? I think it was probably with a tongue in cheek, but it got the point across. I issue a small dog alert all the time, but I think it's on the occasion. I think it's funny. Why can't we be funny and still professional at the same time? Thoughts?
I agree.
Because everybody has a voice, and they all have to say something. So, damn it.
You can still take you can say, it's a small dog alert, small dog warning. All right, but seriously, we're going to have gusts up to 60 miles an hour. I think you can have both.
I guess the Weather Service is held to a different standard in that regard. I didn't.
They're not robots.
Yeah, it was not in a procedure. It was not allowed, I guess. So. Any thoughts on that, Rick? Tim, Alex?
I'm fine with it.
Me too. I have fun with it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I would tell you all the story about Austin many years ago, but I think we would get bleeped. But years ago,
the bleeping guy is gone. So,
and Alex is too young to know about this. But when we had the Weather Service offices in the smaller cities before they centralized, the Austin office at one time issued an alert during very cold weather. They called it it was a brass monkey alert.
at least it wasn't a well digger.
Somewhere. And I'm telling you, that was back in the 80s, probably. Yeah. And I'm telling you, there were some phone calls from the regional office. I can tell you that happened. And to this day, I know the guy that issued that. And it was meant in fun,
Yeah, that's funny.
All right.
Aubrey?
Dr. John Scala sent us a Twitter from OK Let's Science. It's Dakota Smith video, things you should stop telling your meteorologist, which definitely is worth a watch, which is awesome. And then Steve Holmes sent us the Mike Trout, who went out chasing the Arizona snowstorm. Did he really miss his own Hall of Fame induction?
No.
Oh.
He's got a long way to go to the Hall of Fame.
All right. Sorry, I'm really blonde. I guess it shows sometimes. So.
No.
All right.
He's a ways away from the Hall of Fame. He's probably desperate to be there.
All right. And then Richard Cook sent us the highest ever winter temperature record was broken in the UK today with 60.9 degrees in South Wales, a very mild spell, and that was a 122-year-old record in Scotland. How about that?
Yeah.
Well, here's the headline on the app tonight from James's TV station. Are y'all ready for this? Weed killer kill your buzz. Rounding up the results from a new study.
All right, I got to go into the studio before they start yelling at me. Bye, guys. Great
Thanks
show.
for the great hit tonight,
Rick,
Aubrey. Good
thanks
job.
for being on. I appreciate it.
Of course. It was a great time.
It was great talking to you. Have a good night, guys.
Take care, guys.
Good night.
All right. Well, it's just us. We've gotten Kevin's pick, and of course, every week we get all the guests and all the panelists to suggest something, a book, a website, an app, a product, anything, a journal article. Kim Clocko McLean. It's just get in practice here. What's your pick of the week?
Sure. So I'm going to return to a topic we've discussed a little bit on the show, National Flood Insurance Program and flood policy. As we've discussed, there are a lot of challenges that go on in the program, and actually the program still needs to be reauthorized, overhaul made to it. It's been getting kicked down the road with teeny little reauthorizations. So still something we're looking to see if Congress does make some sort of substantial change to the program to put it on more solid financial footing. However, the article is talking about how there's an important body that was instituted with the last sort of overhaul to the program called the Technical Mapping Advisory Council, or TMAC. And it's about 20 people, I think, who are experts in all things flooding. So take the Jamie Rome of storm surge and then add that to 19 other people. And storm surge is one of the concerns for inundation and flooding in different places. And then you get the TMAC. They haven't been able to meet because a lot of them, even if they did have security clearance before, it's expired, or there are people who are trying to get on it who don't have clearance. The flood-related issues to try to get the program in more, but the mapping process. I really loved one of the quotes in this article that I linked to, where talking about it. I actually struggle with too, the meteorology field. Among the key questions TMEC was studying last year was how to communicate uncertainty and precision around data models that determine flood zones without undermining public confidence in flood insurance maps. And I just thought that was so interesting. I'd love to know a report that sort of gets into this issue. And I would love to know what it is that they're thinking about and what progress they're making in that area, because I think that we could benefit from that conversation as well. So that's my pick.
Outstanding, Kim. Alex, do you have to go in just a minute to do your
I
pick?
do.
All right, why don't you give your pick real quick? I got a feeling I know what it is.
Well, there's so many things tropical that I could just call on one thing, but something that hit me this week, we've got a sponsor, it's USAA, and one of the really good guys there, Rob Galbraith, just decided to walk away after 20 years at USAA, but he's written a book, and it's called The End of Insurance as We Know It. And it's an interesting book because it takes a whole different look at of insurance company that's coming in now, the individual things that are going to happen, and a lot of that, of what he's trying to bring out, it could impact what we're looking at in the future when we're looking at disasters that come into the communities, how insurance companies may be a whole different animal in the next 10, maybe 15 years. So an interesting book, The End of Insurance as We Know It.
Outstanding. We're looking forward to seeing you in South Padre. Tell us one more time where to go register.
All right. You can come register at hurricanecenterlive.com. We've got a great conference plan for you guys, and it's open for all broadcast meteorologists, all insurance, all business folks, and anybody who's really interested in tropical meteorology.
Outstanding. Thank you for joining us tonight.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Troy, what's your pick of the week, sir?
Well, hats off, and I wanted to say this, and James referred to it a few minutes ago, Bill, that the weather offices in Jackson with the EF3 over in Columbus, Mississippi. And also I wanted to give a shout out to the weather office up in Memphis. They dealt with the EF2 up at Burnsville, Mississippi, and they did a good job with that warning over the weekend, by the way. That was a fairly destructive little tornado there in extreme northeast Mississippi. And I just want to mention both those offices. In a few weeks, we're actually going to talk a little about the Memphis tornado warnings, but they really did a nice job this weekend. Also, Weather Service in Jackson. Hey, I had my pick of the week really is the surface analysis chart. One of the new ones that the WPC Weather Prediction Center has set up is their interactive surface maps. You can zoom in, and the coolest thing about it is you can look at 3 hourly surface analysis back to May of 2005, and that is cool.
Wow.
So I've got that link, and it's really a cool one, and Bill has that, and we'll make sure everybody has it, but really useful operationally as well to kind of see what's going on. You set the background, how you topo or whatever, and it really is a nice interactive. And good job, WPC.
Yeah, now that's a pick of the week that you can put some use to right there.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Great to have you here tonight. My pick of the week is all the great guests that are coming up tonight's. Great show. Good to have Rick on here. We've got Hurricane Schwartz next week joining us from Philadelphia, and it's going to be National Weather Podcast Month starting on the 1st. And Joel Hausman will join us on that show. Brett Kern, the Tennessee Titans punter, who is a weather nerd, maybe not of the same renown as Mike Trout, but still nice to have a sports figure who loves weather. He'll be joining us on the 11th. We'll talk about Aubrey's appearance at the MSU Symposium on the 18th with the organizers of the Mississippi State program. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then I'm going to be in Ireland with a bunch of people drinking Guinness on the 25th. At like 3 a.m. in the morning, and Chuck Doswell will be the guest that night. So I don't know who'll be having more fun that night. All of y'all with Chuck or me with the Guinness people in the Temple Bar in Ireland. I'm not sure. So anyway, that's just some of the folks who are coming up. We've got Tim Heller coming up in a few weeks, Harold Brooks and Victor Gensini. We've got Gary Woodall that you mentioned coming up. Just great shows, and Aubrey's trying to shoehorn a 6-month retrospective on Michael in here. So somewhere around the end of March, maybe we'll get that fit in here. And we're going to be broadcasting from the conference that Alex and Tim were on telling us about tonight too. We're hoping that night to have 4 National Hurricane Center directors on the show, and we've never been able to get Neil Frank. He's like, his exact words were, "Why would I want to do that?" So I hear they have. cajoled him into doing it. So we'll see how that goes. Rick, it's been great having you tonight. Do you have a pick of the week for us?
I didn't know there was such a thing. So
yeah, sorry
I don't
about
have
that.
anything.
We like
Obviously,
to spring that on the.
it's good.
Yes,
I mean, I would hawk my umbrella,
There you
Weatherman
go,
umbrella,
Rick.
weathermanumbrella.com. It's the only place you can buy it. How did you make there be a National Weather Podcast Month? That's pretty impressive.
Well, we were the first and original. We've been doing this for 13 years, but now there's a slew of good weather podcasts.
Yeah.
And a group of them, the Stormfront Freaks. Folks,
I was on
led
that one
to
once.
a chance to sort of organize. So we're excited to promote.
Nicely done. This has been an awesome time here. You guys are doing great stuff. Thank you for letting me be.
You've been awesome to spend time with us. We were thrilled to get you on the show, and you lived up to your billing, sir, and far exceeded it. So thank you.
All right. Anytime.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Stay in touch.
WeatherBrains is the weekly podcast all about weather. We do it on Monday nights generally. We'll do it on a Wednesday night coming up soon from South Padre Island. But we have a lot of fun doing the show. We have great people like Tim and Alex and Rick joining us, and great panelists like Troy and Kim and all the folks that are here. And the show just keeps getting better and better. But until next Monday night, when the guest will be the famous Hurricane Schwartz, along with Joel Hausman from one of the national weather podcast shows, I'm Bill Murray for the whole WeatherBrains gang, reminding you to keep an eye to the sky because you'll always have something fun to look at. Good job.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Good to talk to you, Kim.
Yeah, good to talk with you guys too. What a fun show, man.
It really was. You know what's really embarrassing?
What's that?
I had no idea who Rick was.
Oh my gosh, I didn't either, and I didn't want to say I'm sorry. I've been trying so hard not to watch cable news. Don't take offense, but
yeah. So here's how it goes. Aubrey calls and says, "I want to have Rick write me." Great, the umbrella, wonderful. I don't have anything to do with the preparation for it. Scott Martin does it. I sit down at dinner. We have a big iMac on our island in the kitchen, so I just Google Rick Reitmuth, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's on the Fox News channel. He is like on Fox and Friends. He probably talks to the president every day."
Right.
And I was like, "Aubrey, you gotta introduce this guy because I feel inadequate to introduce him." So anyway, luckily she was excited, but he was a great get, so it turned out to be a super show.
Yeah. Oh, there was so much that when he got going that I wanted to ask, and I was like, I am just not. Nope. Every idea is bad. I just won't do it. That's the tamest thing I could think of, and then just let James handle everything else.
Well, that's awesome. Well, you guys have a great week.
Take care,
you guys
y'all.
too.
Bye.
Bye.
Ooh, no, they're gone. Oh, yeah. So this is that creepy time where we are simulcasting on WeatherBrains and Song of the Night on my Instagram feed, on the Insta, the IG. But thank you guys for listening. Great show. Loved having Rick on with us tonight from Fox News Channel and talking about the tropical conference coming up. That was great fun. And we will see you guys next Monday night. So for the WeatherBrains viewers and listeners, thank you all for watching. Have a great week and God bless. And join us on Instagram. I'm SpanWX on the